her sword. He will leave her this ring and she needs to hurry up and leave. Leaf drops a ring with a red stone into the woman's hands. She thanks her older brother for not killing her and hopes in her mind that this ring will not kill her. Looking at the ring better, she realizes that this is an orange outfit with legendary quality, and there are not so many of them on the whole continent. And since this man gave it to her so easily, does this mean that he really is now her older brother and teacher? Ferenc remembers about his teenager with the 524th level and thinks that he is handsome and cute, wishing that he would go with him as soon as possible to raise his level and send him home as soon as possible. If you think about it, then with such a level, he should already be a master, and how did he end up in such a position? The pink-haired girl screams that Iluo is to blame for everything that happened today and he caused her brother Feng so much suffering and how he is going to make amends to them. Iluo asks her not to be angry, as he will take it up right now and reimburse all the losses the next time they enter the game. The pink-haired one says that it will be right and asks brother Feng to go soon and takes his arm. Ilo in the image of a dog is wagging his tail quite. Ferenc thinks they treat him like a dog. He raises his hands to the sky in extreme despair and shouts why the only talented and brave person who can kill him turned out to be just an errand dog. Fen Ting says that if that's all, then he will go first, as he is a little tired. The pink-haired one asks brother Fen to go with her. Iluo asks if they will leave so easily. Fen Ting creates a portal and they exit the game. The girl doesn't even turn around. Ilo says that let the flower rest properly, and he will compensate for all her losses. Ferenc thinks that the young man is wagging his tail again, while he was abandoned by his own team. He could have been angry at least a little bit. Leaf looks at Ilo and thinks that it's even good that everyone has already left and only he and this player with the 524th level are left. The brunette thanks him for saving her. Lester says that he just acted according to justice, the light of righteousness, and thinks that this boy is also naive. He likes him and takes him for himself. Ilo smiles stupidly. Lester says that in this case he now has one more wonderful friend and offers to accompany him to the workshop in order for him to fix his broken weapon. He gives his name and Ilo says that although he is very grateful to Lester for his help, he still has to refuse because he wants to compensate for all his losses on his own, since he does not want to disappoint the flower, let alone cause inconvenience to him. Ferenc is horrified to think that his super game genius turned out to be an ordinary weakling dog, and Daddy will not allow this, otherwise he will collect garbage for these imbeciles. And when he grows up to kill him, he will have dried up and covered with cobwebs for a long time. Lester cheerfully says that he has a task assigned to him by the main one. He must go to the Kaiyang swamp in order to clean up all the monsters there, and he said that if we complete this quest, then we will definitely get good things and offers to divide them in half if he agrees to go with him. Leaf bites his fingers and thinks that he urgently needs to get up from his knees and he will be his father and support. Ilo timidly says that she still can't go with him. Ferenc says that there are no buts and in any case, the brunette cannot refuse. The white-haired man thinks that now he is like a dog. Iluo says that what he really wanted to say was that his bag wasn't roomy enough. The red-haired woman, who never left, takes out her huge bag and says that it's okay, since her bag is very big, and asks her brothers to take it with them. She leans over to Ilo, who is bleeding from his nose, and says that she is very big. A woman shamelessly flirts with a young man and says that she has more strength than they can even imagine. Lester covers Ilo's eyes with his hand and says that they will pretend that they didn't see anything and they need to go as soon as possible. The red-haired woman is obviously very disappointed. They walk to the Kaiyang swamp through a mountainous area covered with fog and dotted with huge skeletons of monsters. The red-haired woman is whistling something to herself. Ferenc says that they are just a sweet bone for the dog and orders them to follow him, as he is going to open a magic scroll for the dungeon. A red octopus-like monster appears in front of him. The woman happily says that long live the boss. Lester attacks the monster with a 5th level magic called Fireball Attack. The red-haired one screams that it's just amazing. As a result of this attack, the octopus monster crumbles into a lot of gold coins, medicines, weapons, and jewelry. Iluo gleefully picks up the coins and shouts that the Pope is very powerful, and that there are restoring potions, pills for strength, and all his previous losses are now restored in an instant. The red-haired woman puts on a crown and twirls a saber in her hands, shouting that it is very cool, and she has never had anything like it. Leaf thinks that let Ilo take everything. It will be his reward. He will grow up, raise his level, and then destroy him. Ilo in expensive armor and a cloak with a huge sword pierces the joyful Ferenc through, and then he will be able to return home to his mother. Lester gawks, waves his arms, and shouts loudly that just the thought of it instantly makes him happy. Ilo asks if he's okay. The red-haired woman confusedly says that, probably, He is too hardworking a person and he will not understand him. Ferenc thinks that since his goal is to make this kid as strong as possible, why not just give him a trial? Leaf hands the stunned Iluo a scroll and says that if he wants to feel stronger at the speed of light, he can lend him a scroll with fireballs so that he can dominate this Kaiyang swamp. Iluo confusedly asks if it will suit him. Lester shouts that since he said he would come, it means that he will come and that he will not take the redhead with them, and his soul is next to him. The red-haired woman asks with displeasure who else is a redhead and how dare he call her that. In the heart of the Kaiyang swamp, white flowers grow in the middle of a black swamp. Small flames burst out and monsters in the form of flowers and octopuses rush at the adventurers who have come. Iluo instantly destroys them with a scroll with fireballs and says, looking at the huge fireball above his head, that it is very powerful, and he is just like a killer with this scroll. No matter what level the monster has, he dies on the spot. The woman says that this is really cool and thinks that after collecting all these things that fell out of the killed monsters, the ring given to her by Ferenc was filled by only 1%, and that the identity of the older brother is becoming more and more suspicious. She leans over to Yilo and asks if he has seen this guy named Lester before, if they know him personally, and what kind of relationship he has with him. The brunette replies that he did not know him before. He is really very strong, going through difficult roads and always comes to the aid of those who need it, and he is even envious. The red-haired girl thinks that such a picture can easily deceive Yilo, but not her. Lester is clearly not a simple student-level player. He is certainly not below the boss's level, and for some reason unknown to her, the boss is so much interested in this young adventurer named Yilo. However, he claims that he has absolutely a small level and there is another goal. A huge monster in the form of a spider appears in front of them, around which a multicolored glow spreads. Iluo screams in horror that this is a demonic spider, the most powerful boss in the Kaiyang swamp, and that this is all. The system will kill them, since this boss surpasses their level combined and it is simply impossible to kill him. Leaf stands silently and looks. The red-haired woman asks Mr. Lester what they need to do now. He replies that they have nothing to fear and do not underestimate their strength. A demonic spider weaves its purple web. Ilo grabs his head. Ferenc shoots him with his fireballs. A whirlwind of fire engulfs the spider monster, and it turns into a sword with a red crystal. The red-haired girl exclaims very happily that it's perfectly played. There are sparks in her eyes. Lester frowns and says wait to be happy, because that's not all. 3 figures appear in the sky. Iluo doesn't understand where these newcomers came from here. A blonde man in a purple cloak and a wand in his hand shouts that the most important monster of the quest in 16 hours of fierce battle, it was not enough to miss everything because of these fools. Another blonde man with a bow and a quiver of arrows shouts that they have not thought about what it's like for them now. A black-haired young man in a red raincoat shouts that now it will take a week for this boss to be in the game again. They have already missed all the important awards and events and what they will pay them now. They shout that there are 2 scientists and 1 student. You should just arrange a duel and that's it. Iluo shouts that they just can't be that unreasonable, and they don't need to approach. A bad gleam appears in Ferenc's eyes, and he shoots fireballs at the 3 adventurers. They instantly disappear and only their equipment remains. Swords, shoes, and cuirasses. Iluo says that Mr. Lester sent 3 adventurers to the resurrection point so easily. Liszt says that there is nothing to be surprised about. If he works much better, he will be able to do it too. Hearts appear in the eyes of the red-haired girl and she shouts in love that now Mr. Lester is her god and from today she will be his most devoted fan and offers to go together on the Flower Road. Ilo says that Ferenc is so powerful and he really wants to become like him. Leaf thinks that he wants it almost more than a brunette and his results are very important to him. Ilo continues that then he will conquer the heart of the flower and they will play miracle together. Lester spits viciously and thinks that the young man is already very tired of him with his flower, and he begins to regret that he even knows him. The red-haired and Ilo poke at their blue windows and ask the gentleman to add them as friends. Ferenc says that he only works part-time and he has an agreement with the main one that he has no right to make friends while working. At this time, he thinks that he simply does not have the usual functions of players in the friends system to accept friend requests. The white-haired man tells them to take their weapons, and he definitely needs to go out early, and as soon as he returns, he will immediately contact them and instantly disappears. Smoke is coming from the scroll. Iluo sadly says that it has disappeared and he did not even have time to thank Mr. Lester and say goodbye to him. Ferenc plops down on his throne in the Dark Lord's castle and says with relief that it's good that he managed to escape. Otherwise he could have been exposed on the first day. A notification sound is heard and the Dark Lord says that he has received a message from the player, and from whom it may be. A very candid photo of the red-haired woman and a message appears on the screen, in which it is written that the gentleman left so quickly she didn't even have time to say goodbye to him and that he is really very cool. Ferenc mentally orders Huygen to prepare his harem urgently. A buxom girl in a black bodysuit, black tails and red horns asks the owner not to hesitate to tell her what she does not know. The red Ferenc is in his dreams and thinks that he can do it at least 100 million times and throws himself at the creature standing in front of him. A pink-haired man in a jacket screams in horror that he is straight and cannot. Liszt asks what he just said to him and immediately returns to the throne, saying that he asks for forgiveness. He was busy with some personal matters all last night and asks him to continue. The white-haired man thinks that this redhead is to blame for everything and that he can't do anything when he is excited. Pink-haired says that, as he just said, very strange creatures with new abilities and location have recently appeared on the continent of adventurers. It is still impossible to determine whether they are players or game characters. Ferenc bites his fingernail and says that, apparently, they invented something new and did the update of the game Miracle come out. The man says that he, Wang Yingming, learned from the general chat of adventurers that Miracle is indeed releasing a fresh update tonight, and after this update, a new sacred country map will be opened, which will increase the level of each player, and a new swordsman profession, such as an oriental swordsman, is added. Leaf says that they have finally moved on from the dead point. He thinks that his goal to die has moved one step further. Pink-haired says that, oddly enough, these unusual creatures do not appear in the changelog at all, and should he focus on this and solve this problem right now. Ferenc tells him not to worry too much, and he suspects that this is generally just a cover, and that Lucas has done a good job and he needs to go on collecting information. Lucas bows and says that's right, and he leaves his majesty. Ferenc thinks that a new profession, a new level, and how in general you can miss such a great and rare opportunity. You can't lose a minute, and it's time to get busy. But for the sake of safety, it will be necessary to improve the intersection magic next time so as not to create huge holes anymore. A huge explosion is heard, and a pillar of flame pierces the sky. Dishes, food and girls fall to the floor. A red-haired girl with cat ears says that for 3 days and 3 nights it has been going on without sleep and rest. That the owner has changed so much that he is ready to train for so long. Does he want to blow up the sky? Luna tries to gather fruit into a plate and says that she doesn't understand anything at all either, but she is happy to see him so focused. After all, the Lord hasn't been so energetic for a very long time. Ferenc stands in a cloud of dust, his fists clenched. Luna says that, according to her impression, he should become the Lord of everything and rule the whole world of miracle and eternal darkness. But she does not know why during all this time all she sees is his silence and loneliness, so she often wonders why the king seems so out of this world. The red-haired woman calls out to the moon and hugs her tightly, saying that she thinks she reads too many romance novels, and how about an older sister who will love her while the owner is away from home. Luna moans that Yulan is too persistent. Ferenc enters the room and says to stop this nonsense, go downstairs and change. Luna and Yulan fall to their knees and shout that they shouldn't have upset the master with their antics, and no matter what he did, they ask him not to expel them and spare them. Leaf says that they misunderstood him and, opening his blue window, informs him that he is going to call Lily in order to experiment with his new and improved teleportation skill. He creates a large purple portal, from which a green-haired girl falls out and shouts that thanks to the call of the master, Lily came to serve the Imperial front. She falls on Ferenc and drops him to the floor. The white-haired man cheerfully says that Lily has to work hard to help him with the new teleportation system. Lily says she's at his service. Liszt thinks that the sensations are still as pleasant. He says that she should know that he, as a former Dark Lord, has the ability to create magical teleports. But merging to create higher magic is risky, which is why he needs her, immune to any death, to enter this teleport and help him in this experiment. Ferenc picks up Lily in his arms, who says that she will not let him down and launches him into the purple portal. The Dark Lord uses a forbidden spell called Tristolo Phase Teleportation and says that it looks like the result will be good, and now you will have to wait until Lily teleports back. Unable to stand the long wait, Leaf adjusts himself to his character and teleports to Yilo, thinking that he needs to hurry with him and leave the problem with Lily for later. He calls baby Yilo and he answers from behind the column. The brunette sits on the wall and says that he was fooled by Scarlet, because she said she knew a great person who could sell good weapons at a high price, and he believed it. But she hacked all the equipment that Lester gave him, and even his own saved when he returned from school and came in on the internet. I found this. Yuluo is sitting in only shorts and socks, with a simple sword and shield behind his back. Leaf says that the redhead is good, since she dared to pull something like this even under his supervision, and then let her prepare to endure the anger of her older brother. Ilo says that now she has removed him from friends and blacklisted him, he cannot contact her and what he needs to do now. Lester takes a scroll out of his bosom and tells him to take it and follow him. The white-haired one uses a 9th level magic called the Call of Anthropos and holds a scroll. On the other hand, it is held by an astonished young man. Leaf orders to teleport to the Scarlet player immediately. On Ilo's head is a huge red bow and a half-open suit with high-heeled shoes. He thanks Mr. Lester for helping him change his clothes, but does not understand why it looks like this. Ferenc says that he has only such things and so far the young man will manage with this. He thinks that Yulan is very naughty since she chose such a strange outfit for him. There is a small market at the entrance to the Dark Forest, where armor and weapons are actively traded and quite a lot of players. The player with his head wrapped looks at Ilo very strangely, and Leaf says that it looks like they have arrived at the door of some kind of instance. The brunette says that this is a single-player instance of the Endless Stream, which is open to all levels, but only a player with the Grandmaster level can complete it completely, and that the greatness of the Dark Forest is amazing. The scroll brought them here, and now they will be able to find it. He notices Scarlet in front of them and shouts loudly that she is there. Scarlet turns around and says with displeasure that they came here, but fortunately she was ready. The woman quickly takes off and starts running away. The leaf touches her hair, but Scarlet touches the portal with her finger, which she managed to reach, and, saying goodbye, disappears. Ilo angrily punches the portal and shouts that now they will never catch her, only if she comes out on her own. Otherwise they will never find her again. But she can continue to work with the market system and sell all the equipment without paying them anything. And I believed her and now it's too late to complain to the support service. Lester gently pats him on the head and asks him not to be angry, and then asks what the name of this place is. Ilo says it's a dark forest. Leaf rolls his eyes and thinks that isn't it a garden in his backyard. He says he's going to have a lot of fun. In the Dark Forest, the domain of the Dark Lord, Scarlet sits on huge mushrooms and pokes her finger at her blue window, saying that while this book is not active, no monsters will be able to attack her. If she sells all the equipment and transfers money to her account, then they will not be able to do anything to her. She understands that she did wrong. But she had to do it and let them forgive her if they can. A red window is displayed in which it is written that it is impossible during the battle, and the confirm transaction button. A woman is surrounded by a crowd of monsters and she shouts that she did not open this book, whereas a boss could appear here at all. A red monster in a tailcoat and with a cane shouts to give it to him. Monsters in the form of wolves run to Scarlet calling for help. Near the portal, Lester is sitting at the table in front of a bowl of noodles and says that of course, ordinary players can easily hold such everyday things in their hands. He eats noodles and says that it's kimchi and how delicious it is. The aroma of stewed beef together with the taste of noodles instantly penetrates into his head, and many thanks to the developers for imitating the flavors. The waiter in a white coat says that he hopes that the gentleman is not going to eat it all and leave, saying only thank you. Iluo mumbles that he thinks it's not the time to eat. Lester thinks he doesn't understand what it's like to feel ordinary. He pours some coins and bracelets on the table and tells the waiter to shut up and bring him another cup. He happily thanks him and runs away. Leaf tells Ilo not to worry, as Scarlet will appear soon. The young man asks why he is so sure of this. Ferenc thinks it's because he's already taken care of everything. A red monster in a tailcoat falls on one knee in front of him and puts his hands in a lock, saying that he never thought he would see his king live and whether he wanted him to take care of that girl named Scarlet and give her the most valuable awards that he has, and whether he understood the master correctly. Ferenc says it's exactly the opposite and he wants the red monster to kill her. He throws Scarlet to the ground and she whispers that this is barbarism. A red monster in a tailcoat raises a huge hammer over her head and shouts that it is for their king. A woman uses teleportation and the release of forces. She falls out of the portal onto the green grass and breathes fitfully. Next to her are Ilo and Lester, who say what a pleasant coincidence it is and what a surprise. Ilo throws Scarlet against the wall and asks where she put all the things. She screams why he hit her in the face. The brunette shouts that he trusted her and she betrayed and robbed him. The red-haired woman says she has to apologize and that's all she can do. Lester says she should be ashamed, because after this, every second person will look at her as a fraudster or a murderer, and whether she understands what he is talking about. Scarlet sadly says that she is not afraid of his threats, since she will not be able to live long anyway. Ilo asks what she is talking about. Tears are streaming down the woman's face and she asks for forgiveness, because she had no other choice. Her father pinned his hopes on his friend, but he went into big debts and because of this the company went bankrupt. All employees quit, and he himself was put in prison, and she had no other choice but how to do this, and they can do whatever they want with her. But first give her the opportunity to sell these items and save her family, after which she will work only for them. Ferenc recalls how he himself crawled on his knees in front of a tall blonde man and asked to be allowed to participate in the program, and he would do anything. He asks if that's enough. Scarlet looks at him in disbelief. Lester irritably asks if these things are enough to pay off her family's debts and not make him talk 3 times. The red-haired woman says that she will be able to pay most of the debts and the remaining 3 million will not be so difficult to find. Elo is in shock. The white-haired man asks what she is going to do next. Continue to kill and steal, and she should know that many government services are connected to the system, and violating the rules of the game will lead to her imminent death. Therefore, he will give her enough legendary and valuable items so that she can pay off her family's debts. Scarlet looks hopefully at his outstretched hand and says that if so, then he can do whatever his heart desires with it. Lester says that then from that moment on she becomes his personal maid and personal adventurer, and from that day on she must unquestioningly carry out all his orders and call him master. She listens. Liszt says that he will first sign a contract with her in case she suddenly decides to hide again. In his mind, he shouts that it's just fine and every man's dream is a personal maid. Ferenc tells them to remember that under his guidance they will quickly become masters. Above Iluo's head, the inscription "The player is a scientist," a personal disciple of the Dark Lord, appears, and he shouts thanks to his teacher, who has repaid more than 6 million debts. He is the greatest and most powerful. Lester says they should go train. In a huge glass castle on the red carpet, Lester and Elo meet Scarlet in a maid costume and 2 blonde young men in suits. The woman joyfully greets my lord and says that the castle is registered in her name and it remains only to finish with the formalities. She asks them to feel at home. Elo looks around admiringly. Leaf says he is amazed. The young man says that poverty limits his imagination. Ferenc sits impressively in an armchair and says that they will still see each other in the future, and therefore the house will not hurt them at all. Scarlet asks again. Iluo says with tears in her eyes that she is very touched by the teacher's concern. The red-haired one says that she is very touched that even after such an outrageous act of hers, she was able to become part of his family and thanks the master, wiping her tears. Liszt says that then let these losers go and train. Especially he, Elo, should become at least a sword master in a week, and if he does not do this, he may not return to him. Elo happily shouts that he will do everything. Scarlet jumps up and also says that everything will be done and they are already on their way. Lester stands on the balcony and looks at the castle, saying that it is very beautiful here, and here it is, the happiness of an ordinary adventurer. A female voice is heard from behind, who says that it is really very beautiful. A tall white-haired girl in a golden tiara, in white open clothes and with 6 wings enters the balcony, and says that sometimes you need to visit your exes, but let Liszt not be happy that she decided to visit him after a long time. She is here for a completely different reason, and she is here because he allowed himself to cross the line permitted. In front of the blue mechanism with flasks and liquid, the goddess of light Meng Ling King, one of the 4 bosses who participate together with Ferenc in this game. Comparing her to the other 2 bosses, her possessions and abilities are very similar to his, but diametrically opposed. They completely immersed themselves in the game world and tried a lot of different things. Ferenc and Meng Ling King are sitting on a hill in the mountains among the trees, but she wanted him to stay with her forever, while his goal was to return to his mother. Therefore, in the end they peacefully broke up with each other and never saw each other again. Meng Ling King and Leaf collide forces so that other players only fly in different directions. And now she's standing right in front of him. Lester asks that it was a long time ago and whether she came to give him an invitation to a wedding party. Whether she knows that he bought a new house for himself a long time ago, and therefore will not be able to help her with the organization in any way. The goddess of light says that she is not going to reunite with him at all and has come to warn him that his operations with the sale of high-ranking items have upset the balance in the global economy of the game. And it is better for him to moderate his ardor, otherwise he will have big problems. Ferenc spreads his hands and turns his head, asking what sanctions they will impose on him and whether the system will choose his noodles even more carefully. Meng Ling King strictly tells him not to underestimate the system, since his power as a Dark Lord capable of destroying all life and turning the firmament was obtained only thanks to the system. And if he indulges his selfish desires and continues to break the game balance, then players will start to leave the game, and its meaning will begin to be lost. Leaf says that he is also well aware and knows what their goals are and offers to sit down, eat and talk, and pulls out a jar of instant noodles with love in his eyes. 5 empty boxes of instant noodles are lying on the table. Ferenc and Meng King, who has changed into a homemade dress, are enthusiastically eating noodles. The goddess of light says that he should not think that it is so easy to buy it, but this noodles smells so nice. She grins. Leaf asks her to keep her mouth shut when she eats. Meng King tells him to stop whining and give everything he has for this noodles, in which case she will let him go. Lester asks what she's talking about. The goddess of light squeezes his cheeks and shouts that he has had enough of pretending, and she talks about the subject that made a simple adventurer out of the boss. The white-haired man asks what she needs him for. Meng King says that, of course, it's all about clothes. She looks for them every day, but she can't wear any and she just likes to change skins. Ferenc picks up noodles with chopsticks and says that it seems to have overheated in the sun, and does it really have to be such a spender? The white-haired woman tells him to shut up and asks if he will give her the item or not. Leaf says no way, and immediately half of his hoodie is nailed to the sofa by the girl's sword. He nervously says that he knows how to get a second one of the same. Meng King tells him to tell him how to do it, and that, as she knows, this item is only available to bosses, and since there are 4 of them in the game, it can't be that such an item is only singular. Ferenc says that in order to get this item, it is necessary to fulfill certain conditions, as he did by staging a holy war. Meng King asks if he is hinting that she should hurry up and arrange her holy war. Liszt says he means that he will help her with getting this item as soon as possible, but he has one condition, which is that after she finds it, she will join his harem and help him return home. Meng King says it's impossible, but she agrees to wait until they find him. She disappears, and Lester says that she is rude and thinks that the appearance of his ex made him anxious, and it's time for him to reconsider his influence on the entire gaming world. A purple pentagram appears on the floor. Scarlet sticks out of it and says she's back. Ferenc asks if they have lit up on any gaming forum. Scarlet replies that Iluo defeated 3 masters by using the fireball technique, and this news has been hanging in the top for several days. He mutters that the situation is not so serious yet. The red-haired woman sits down on her knees in front of the sheet and says that if the gentleman wishes it, he can give her his real address and she will come to him and become his maid in real life. The white-haired man asks what she is talking about. Scarlet happily says that Lester is a wonderful person. She sent all the money received from the sale of his items to pay off the debt, and now her father will prove his innocence in court. His act changed her whole life and she wants to repay him for it. She thought and decided that even in reality she would completely belong to him. Ferenc raises his hands and says that their relationship of master and servant is limited only to the game world. In reality, it is better not to do this. Scarlet sadly says that she is ready for anything for the sake of the owner. Leaf puts his hand on her shoulder and says that then she doesn't have to think about it, and if she practices being a good maid and raising her level, it will be the best reward for him. Scarlet throws her arms around his neck and kisses him, after which, blushing, she quickly runs away and shouts that she is going to practice. Ferenc is sitting on the sofa in complete shock and thinks that he got a kiss from a real player, and that now he is charged at full capacity for returning home and will cuddle with his maid. But if he wants to find the second scroll, he must first solve one problem, namely to find his slug queen Lily. Ferenc activates a 9th level magic called the Call of Anthropos, a 10th level magic called the Prayer of the 3 Goddesses of Fate, a forbidden magic called the All-Seeing Abyss, a magical cover for the entire continent of adventurers. The target is the Slug Queen. He doesn't understand how it can be that Lily's aura could disappear from the game world. The magic he used is not lethal at all, despite Lily's immortal body, and what happened in the end, because it can't be removed so easily and it looks like it will have to be used. Ferenc activates the magic of time travel. A large blue funnel appears, and he thinks that he will return to the moment when the merging of the lions went wrong, track and recycle them. He steps into the intertemporal space, finds the wrong texture, and begins to correct it. At this time, someone puts a hand on his shoulder. Leaf abruptly turns around and asks who it is. The Dark Lord is standing behind him.